Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How you're doing out there? I've got a great guest lined up for you again today for your listening pleasure, because Mark Logan, CEO of a company called Logarithm, is joining us in a conversation on the importance of the CSO and CISO reporting directly into the CEO. And Mark will explain why this reporting structure demonstrates the value a company places on cybersecurity as an enabler of business performance, especially at a time where a cyber breach and the headlines around cyber breaches are top of mind for the public, and maintaining trust is incredibly crucial. And in the wake of major breaches over the last few months alone, organisations across industries are reevaluating their cybersecurity strategies, with many realigning their priorities to ensure their security teams and technology solutions can actually meet the needs of the evolving threat landscape. So we've got a lot to get through today. So buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Massachusetts today, where Mark is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. This is Mark Logan. I'm the CEO of Logarithm. And in that capacity, I oversee the day-to-day operations of the business. And Neil, I can give a quick flyover on what Logarithm is all about. We are a cybersecurity software company. We have been in business for many, many years. We've been in business for about 18 years now. And over that period of time, we've been fortunate enough to establish relationships with 4,000 plus customers, in which we provide ongoing cybersecurity safeguards to ensure the safety and operations of their businesses, in some cases, public entities, agencies, et cetera. It's a pleasure speaking with you today.
A pleasure speaking to you too, Mark. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on here. I'm excited about learning more about Logarithm and everything that you're working on at the moment. But before we do, a question I always like to ask my guests is, can you share your origin story? And by that, I mean, where did your passion for technology come from? And what was it that put you on this path that you're on today? Because it's a question I ask every single guest. For the most part, people didn't dream of working in tech, but a series of happy accidents happened along the way. But what's your story?
I'm not sure how earth-shattering this is, but I'll go back to college. I was a double major, engineering and business management, I had an interest in math and engineering sciences and how it applies to businesses. So, early on, my first gig was at Hewlett Packard, and then I quickly pivoted over to a lifelong career of enterprise software. From in some cases, I was a co-founder of a CRM business many years ago, and more recently, I've been involved with larger entities, PeopleSoft, and companies like Logarithm. So the ability to see technology impacting business productivity, profitability, efficiencies has always captivated me, Neil.
Fantastic. And of course, that path led you to Logarithm. And you did give a brief overview a moment ago, but for people that are hearing about Logarithm for the very first time, could you tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving for businesses, and also what makes what you're doing different from other solutions out there?
Definitely. We are in a broad category, cybersecurity, enterprise software. The more subset category we find ourselves in, Neil, is called the SIM space. It's a 4-letter acronym that stands for Security Information and Event Management. So maybe a fancy way of saying the following. We ingest for a customer, for a large enterprise or an agency, all of their log data. So in layman's terms, basically that's all of their enterprise data, whether it's emails or website traffic or any data passing through the enterprise. So we ingest it, and we do literally hundreds of correlation analyses to find anomalies and to find if there is somebody trying to extract data to somehow poison the well, if you will, We help to thwart and prevent things like ransomware, and our threat detection capability keeps these enterprises from losing their intellectual property, from being hacked and losing critical intellectual property, such as client information, employee information, et cetera. And it's an ongoing battle. What we do is really challenging stuff, but we've been at it for a long time, and we're considered in our subset, this SIM subset, we're considered one of the real founders and leaders driving some of the standards forward.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little bit of research on you, and I read about your opinions on the importance of the CSO reporting directly to the CEO. So can you expand on that? Because it's something that we don't talk about very often, and it's such an important point right now.
Well, indeed. And the three-letter acronym you're talking about is the Chief Security Officer, or CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. And we see, if I could take a quick step back,
yeah.
A day doesn't pass, Neil, in which we don't see a massive breach that has reached the papers. Here in the States, not long ago, we had the Colonial Pipeline breach, which impacted literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with fuel supply. And shortly after that, T-Mobile had a breach in which 100 million of their customer information files got exposed. Whether it's water supplies or hospitals under ransomware, federal agencies, it's one after another. So we're seeing the importance of cyber protection as this whole threat landscape increases. There's more threat actors out there. They're getting more sophisticated. The threats are coming more often. And hence, I certainly believe, the stature of those individuals that are assigned to safeguard the business, CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, their stature needs to ascend into the enterprise. So you mentioned some of the articles we've been published. I've been quoted a few times as suggesting that those CISOs really ought to have a seat at the table with the executive team. Hence, this notion of reporting directly to the CEO. So, Neil, we recently participated in a broad survey of 1,400 Chief Information Security Officers, CISOs. This was conducted by a third party called the Ponemon Group. And they found that a mere 7% of CISOs report directly to the CEO. They also found that a disproportionate share, when there's a breach, are held responsible for that breach. So you get the responsibility and you're held accountable, but you don't necessarily have a seat at the table. Another couple of what I find interesting stats. We have at our company, at Logarithm, we have our CISO report up to, not in a HR reporting, but he gives a report and readout on a monthly basis to our board of directors. It's a short readout. It's not steeped in technical nomenclature. However, he keeps the board apprised, and he's a direct report to me. By doing so, that keeps everybody on the appropriate agenda, on guard, if you will, and that allows us to be positioned to make smarter decisions about our cybersecurity well-being. And I think this is a trend for CISOs to gain that stature in enterprises, in agencies, in federal governments going forward. That 7% of direct reporting CIOs to the CISOs, rather, to the CEO, I think that number is going to double and triple in the years ahead.
And traditionally, boardrooms have struggled to find or understand the ROI in cybersecurity until, of course, they have an attack and then they react. But I'm curious if there's a more proactive approach being taken place by the board now. So in the wake of major breaches over the last few months, I'm curious, are you seeing that organizations across all industries are beginning to get proactive, reevaluate their cybersecurity strategies, and realign their priorities? Are we on the right path at the moment?
I'm going to give you a blended answer there. So I would say that yes, we're seeing budgets increase, and we're seeing that CISOs have a greater access to budgets to protect the enterprise. Oftentimes, it is post-breach, to your point, Neil, You don't put the fire extinguishers in the building until there's a fire. So oftentimes it's a little bit too late, but hopefully there hasn't been too much damage done to the enterprise. But we are seeing budgets increase. I'll speak firsthand. We increased our internal cybersecurity budgets by about 70% year over year, last year versus this year. And we are seeing that in our customers as well. We don't quite yet see, back to the 7% reporting stat, we don't quite see that seat at the table across the board, but the trend is in the right direction.
And a few moments ago, you were talking about the reporting structures. And again, I'm curious, are you noticing that these reporting structures are fostering greater trust amongst consumers and indeed future business partners? Is that something that you're seeing?
Well, that's really a great point. So we consider it it's critical to our business because we participate in the supply chain. We heard about the SolarWinds breach and how that impacted not just SolarWinds, but the 18,000 customers that they serve. We hold a very high responsibility that if we get breached and it hurts us internally, well, we're one business and that'd be devastating. If our product gets breached in some fashion, we play such a central part of the supply chain, that could impact all 4,000 of our customers. So we actually market that our Chief Information Security Officer has that seat at the table, has that level of stature, and he's looking both internally into our enterprise and into our product to ensure we've got the right safeguards. I think those businesses, if you were to do business with a large bank and one had a proven track record of investing in their cybersecurity and another one had less of a track record, well, that could be a deciding factor as to who you do business with. So we think more and more cybersecurity is in the vanguard of decision making and how you go about even marketing your business.
So do you think that enterprises that don't get on board with this shift in organizational structure that brings CSOs and CISOs to the forefront, do you think they could eventually stand to lose out on key talent? Because there's already a shortage of talent in this area, isn't there?
I do. And here again, there is a shortage. I read a stat recently that there were some 500,000 jobs open in the U.S. alone for under the broad heading of cybersecurity. So there's way more demand for these types of roles than there is supply right now. So if you were to be recruited by a CISO and he said, yes, I've got a seat at the table, myself and my team briefed the board, et cetera, versus a business in which you were more in the back office and not asked for your opinion very often, well, my career aspirations are going to be better facilitated by the former, not the latter. So I do think you make a really good point about talent retention and even attracting the best talent.
And another thing that I'm hearing about more and more is the fact that data has gone from being the biggest asset and being described as the new oil to, in many cases, the biggest liability inside a company. I'm curious again, are boardrooms waking up to the fact that data privacy should be taken seriously and given the highest priority within a company now? Is that message getting through?
Well, it is quite a paradox, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah.
That we want to subsume as much data about our business partners, our customers, et cetera, but we take on a massive liability when we do so. So that whole data governance is now intricately, engaged with the security protection around it. I do think that responsibility is being taken serious. You look at many of the EU rules. In many cases, the EU really took a step forward ahead of others in terms of data protection and really safeguarding those types of IP assets.
And so much has changed over the last 2 years alone, especially with the way that we're all working now. We've gone from working from home at scale to now a hybrid working. It's going to continue to evolve as we continue to move forward. But what is your big focus at Logarithm for the next 18 months and beyond? I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything you can share about what you're going to be focusing on?
Well, I think you make a good point, and I will cite the real pivot that we've made. 90% of the Logarithm employees were in offices or reporting to an office most weeks pre-pandemic. Now you flip those percentages, 10% are reporting to an office and 90% are working largely virtual. And we see similar percentages within our customers. And I suspect, Neil, that it's no surprise for you to hear that. And when that happens, when you have such a large percentage of your employees virtual, that just increases the threat landscape and makes it harder to oversee the protection and care and feeding of those groups. The Ponemon survey made a similar assessment of how difficult the managing the virtual workforce is. It was the number one challenge for CISO. 60 some odd percent of CISOs said that's my number one challenge, safeguarding this very, very large group of remote folks. So one of the things that we've done at Logarithm, we saw this as a new set of requirements and needs to fill that void. We acquired a business that does network detection and response. The networks expanding to the extent they are in this virtual world. We acquired a company called MissNet back in the early part of this year that is a great adjacency to our SIEM, Security Information Event Management solution. So that's one of the ways, Neil, that we see greater levels of protection capabilities for our customers.
Love that. And it is quite a serious subject that we've covered today, but I always like to have a little bit of fun with my guests. And we started today talking about your origin story, where your passion for technology came from, what put you on this path. But a question I always like to ask every guest is there a song or piece of music that has helped you in your career, helps you get your head in the zone before you go on stage or a big meeting? Is there a particular song that just immediately springs to mind? And we'll add it to our Spotify playlist.
Well, how about that? So my family origins are out of Ireland. All four of my grandparents were born in Ireland. So I've always had a soft spot for our friends at U2 and Bono. So I would go with Mysterious Ways, and I'll tell you why, Neil. There's a line in Mysterious Ways, and it goes like this: if you want to touch the sky, you better learn how to kneel. And there's been various different descriptions as to what that line means. And I believe it means if you want to reach great heights, you better be humble, and you better not take yourself too seriously, not have too big an ego, be prepared to kneel down from time to time. So how about that?
What a great choice, man. I love that. I'm fighting the urge not to sing along with it and make certain noises to the song, but I will spare you that. But for anyone listening who could be listening anywhere in the world, want to find out more information about Logarithm, want to contact your team about anything we've talked about today, what's the best starting point?
Well, so go to logarithm.com. We've got a great website with various demos, customer testimonials. We also have an ongoing, Neil, list of webinars on various different topics. We talked a little bit about network detect and respond. Very, very hot area right now. We run webinars about that virtually on a weekly basis. So best way to find out more about us is to head out to our website and then attend one of our many informative webinars.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. Yes, for explaining why this reporting structure demonstrates the value a company places on cybersecurity as an enabler of a business performance, especially at a time when a cyber breach headlines are top of mind for the public and maintaining trust is more important than ever. I was reading a quote from HSBC the other day that after a breach, it takes a company 2 years on average to bounce back from a reputational side of things alone. But more than anything, just thank you for doing all that and sharing your story as well, and a great tune. So thank you, Mark.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Neil. Thank you.
A big thank you to Mark for coming on the podcast today and discussing how this new reporting structure can foster trust amongst customers and future business partners and ensure that security and data privacy is taken seriously and given the highest priority within a company. And all this sounds super great, of course. But I'm curious, wherever you are working in the world, whatever the size of the company, do you and your business now take cybersecurity seriously? Do you have that proactive approach where you have everything in place now and how to respond to a threat? Or Do the people at the top still have more of a reactive approach where they wait for that big breach to come in and then try and throw money at it to make the problem go away? But of course, the reputational damage and increasingly having to report to regulators on the scale of the attack. But I want to hear real stories from the trenches. Obviously, I'm sat here in my home office every day recording this podcast, but I want to hear these real stories of how seriously businesses are actually taking this threat and how many are just saying the right things. But more than anything, a huge thank you to Mark for sharing his story and the success that they are enjoying because of this new approach, and also for sharing his story. And a great tune too. I had to stop myself from singing along there as he was giving those lyrics out and going, bow, bow. It's all right. She moves in mysterious ways. Or something like that. I had to stop myself, but I'm no more singing from me. I will not wish that on anyone. I want to give a very special shout out to my friends at Hirect, who are sponsoring the Tech Talks Daily podcast this month. I always say on every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. And the recruitment industry is one of those areas in need of an upgrade, because the headache of traditional hiring often involves countless emails, checking spam folders and waiting around for replies. And Hirect are using technology to solve this very problem with the free app where recruiters can chat directly with candidates. And in doing so, they're no longer spending hours in their email and waiting around for responses, and can simply view resumes, exchange contact info, and then have an interview, all in seconds. And not only that, you get curated candidate recommendations, you can chat directly with candidates and accelerate that hiring process up to 10 times faster. So not only is Hirect using technology and this smartphone app to solve these problems, they're using tech to bring people together. But best of all, the app is a free download on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So please check it out, let me know your thoughts, and you can do that by emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. Please keep sharing those insights, and I'll return again tomorrow with another guest and another topic. So thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.